Hello and welcome back to another episode of Star Wars Alliance. Of course, I'm your host Clay, and with me, opening some sort of wrapper. Uh,
Sorry, girls gotta
it's all
eat.
good. It's all good. It's all good. Is of course Katie. Katie, how are you doing today?
This week is chaotic, but we're surviving. I'm at my mom's. If you're here on YouTube and wondering what is going on with Katie's setup, like she looks really weird right now. I don't have anything except my headphones and my laptop. Um, so that's the deal. I also have Mara in the background if you can hear her playing piano. So just FYI, I may have to get up if you're here live. But if you're here on the podcast, Clay's going to do all the editing magic.
I'm gonna try to do as much editing magic as I possibly can, which is always great. I always love a challenge. um, but my day was surprisingly well. Went in for an interview for something that I am super excited about, and crossing my fingers on if that is actually going to happen or not. Um, I will talk more about it once I actually get the job. Uh, I'm not
Knock on
so
wood.
yeah, I'm not like so superstitious, but like I really need this to happen. So because I didn't know exactly what it was until uh, I did a quick Google search, and then I was like, "Holy crap! Okay, cool, this is awesome." So yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. But either way, um, San Diego Comic Con has came and went. It was super quick. Um, what we're gonna talk about, the publishing panel went by even faster. It was so quick. All the news just, you
But a
know,
lot of stuff.
it was a lot of stuff. Surprisingly, there was a little bit of a surprise after the fact when it came to some publishing news as well, which we are going to be talking about. But yeah, we got some publishing news. We're going to talk surprisingly about Skeleton Crew today. And of
Yes.
course, our main topic of discussion is the Star Wars A New Dawn book review. This, of course, is a novel that was the first acknowledgement of cortosis in canon. So that's why
It
we
was also
decided.
the very first canon book written.
Was it?
Yep.
I so okay. Hold on. It was the first canon book written, but the Lords of the Sith timeline wise technically was the first book written, right? I didn't we have this discussion before? Uh
Lords of the Sith was one of the first, but A New Dawn was the first. Um,
okay.
so, um, he had just written and published Kenobi, and then, where was it? I don't remember where it was at. Um, I thought there was some of these books, um, initial books for canon were written for Legends and then repurposed for
Hmm.
canon. So I was trying to figure out if it was one of those, but
Yeah.
um, Miller was 2/3 of the way through writing the novel when he was informed that it would be the first novel within the new Star Wars canon.
And she has an opinion of her own when it comes to Star
She's
Wars
so
material.
talkative right now. I'm sorry.
So yes, we're going to be talking about that book as well. But let's go ahead and start off with the San Diego Comic Con. Let's go ahead and just jump right into that. From what I have in my notes here, the first thing that came out was, you thought we were done with the Acolyte? Hell no. They said, hold my beer, and two prequel books from the timeline of the Acolyte have been announced. There is a untitled novel that is currently in the works. That is
It is based on
starring,
Jord and Jackie.
yeah, starring Yord and Jackie, and then the other novel is set
Well,
20 years prior. Oh, go ahead.
sorry, the Jord and Jackie novel is going to be written by Tessa Gratton, who wrote
Yes,
Temptation of the Force.
yes, that is. I forgot that small detail. And then the second novel is going to be a novel that's set 20 years before the show. So we know the timeline. That is 4 years before the flashbacks in the show. So
Yep.
want to put that into consideration as well. And that shows that it seemingly follows Vernestra and Master Indara. Now, you brought up a very interesting thing about this. Now, I will say the novel that is being Justina Ireland is the one that is writing
Yes.
Wayseeker. That one actually has a title to it.
Yes. And that
The
makes me super excited because Vernestra was Justina's character at the start. So for Justina to be able to write that transition piece, like
Mhm.
obviously it's not like, oh, here's her 100-year life between the High Republic and the
Yeah,
Acolyte. But for her to be able to write the transition piece to get her to where we see her in the Acolyte is really special, I think, to me.
I think so as well. Because not only do you get that, the transition is also a really nice point of being able to do a lot of callbacks to stuff that she did get to work on in phases 1 and 3. So I think that's going to be very, very fun as well. But you brought up a very interesting point. The whole idea of why these two characters are featured in this novel, and you suggested that there's a possibility that Master Indara was at one point a Padawan of Ernesto Rowe.
I think it could be really interesting. And it could tie in some Chimera potential,
Mm-hmm.
how we see Vernestra act as a master later on. But what interests me more is the title is Wayseeker,
Mm-hmm.
which Orla Drini was a Wayseeker,
Yep.
the independent Jedi of the Order. So who's the Wayseeker in this case? Is Vernestra like transitioning from being a Wayseeker
To a
to,
council member.
yeah. So I'm really
Ooh.
interested to see how this works out. This book is due out in May. Did we get a date on the? Oh yeah, Yord and Jackie is July of 2025. Um, and so with the other book that we'll talk about, so that gives us the February book. Wayseeker is May 6th, 2025. Trials of the Jedi is June 2025. And then Your Jackie is July 2025.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
very cool. The Yord and Jackie book is also the first non-High Republic Disney book that we're going to be getting in over a year. So
Yeah. That is something that
yeah,
that is happening.
yeah.
I
Um,
I'm really excited about this. Of course, I have a new. I'm not gonna say hatred. It's not hatred, but we as a community should be looking at the Jedi a little differently after the Acolyte. Just
mhm.
saying. So, how does this keep the same light that we love the High Republic to be, while also still paving the way to where they will inevitably be in the Acolyte show? Because I think that's a big thing too.
I
So
don't think you're going to have a whole lot of light in this case because you have to show the transition, right? So
well,
you
that's
want
what I mean. Yeah.
to show the growth of the character. Um, and like while introducing new ones. So I will be interested to see how it goes. I think this is Justina Ireland's first adult book, actually, because Wayseeker is a Random House Worlds book.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting to see her writing style for that, because what I've only seen from her is the middle grade books and then the young adult books.
Yeah.
So, but I have complete faith in her. Her books have been some of my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really excited.
Yeah.
By the prospect. So the next bit of news we have, so everyone was thinking that Cavan Scott's High Republic 2023 run was very short at only 8 issues, but it is actually getting an additional run, The Fear of the Jedi. And it's going to tie in with the Kelnaka one-shot that we're getting in September. But The Fear of the Jedi is going to be starting February of 2025, so it's getting a little bit of a break. And then it will be continuing with Kiev, Kelnaka, Lorna D, and some others that I'm not going to spoil because we'll be talking about those later on this month.
Will.
So, but I enjoy that, and especially to get Kelnaka involved in that, that'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be really, really fun to see his development as a character, because we didn't see a lot of development in the show. Of course, we're gonna see where he's at. I can't remember the Kalnaka one shot. Was that supposed to be set after the events of the flashback, or is it?
No, so it's a High Republic tie-in. So Kalnaka.
I thought. Oh, because I thought there was somebody that said the tattoo on his head has to do with something with like his like self-banishment. I may be wrong.
So here, so okay, hang on. So here he is cooking. And doesn't he have the tattoo right here? Isn't that the tattoo?
That is a good question. Kalnaka.
That's not it.
There's nowhere that shows. Oh wait, actually, I see. So there's a shot of him. No, there's a shot of him actually talking to a young Osha outside of their ship when it's daylight, and you can actually see the tattoo on his head.
Okay.
So I was mistaken. So,
but it may be how he gets the tattoo.
Okay, like because I thought I heard somebody say that yes, there will be an explanation of why he has the tattoo or whatever. So that'll be fun. But also it helps us with like the rank. Now I'm not sure they'll give us a specific like age, but like Fear the Jedi has some of the characters that we are seeing in Phase 3, and we're seeing him in the Acolyte 100 years later. So like, how long has he been a Jedi at this point? You know, is he just starting out? Is he a new Jedi Knight? Like, that's the stuff that I'm interested in. Some of the lore of that would be nice.
Yeah. So the one shot says delve deep into the history of Kelnaka and the world of the High Republic in this bombastic one shot. It also includes an exclusive interview with Jonas Suotamo, the Kelnaka actor. So that's just kind of what it says. He said the comic, in the interview about the comic, Scott said he was excited to connect the Acolyte with previous High Republic media and that Kelnaka was the perfect character to do so. He also revealed that the comic would explain the meaning behind Kelnaka's mysterious tattoos. So there you go.
Boom. There we go. So yeah, lots of fun. Looking forward to reading all of that.
Yes.
But the other news that we received, and I just want to make sure that I'm not skipping over anything. What we are also getting from that panel was the Arts of the High Republic by Kristen,
Volume 2.
Volume 2 by Kristen Baver. Um, I love this cover.
It's
This
so good.
cover is amazing. Now, the only thing is,
It says cover, not final.
cover not final for one, but that's seemingly Avar.
Yep.
Then we have Renestra. Who is that?
That's Belle.
No.
Yeah.
Belle has had so many different hairstyles in the High Republic, which I appreciate. But also, like, I think he's looked different in everywhere that he actually has like art and like showing of him. He's looked different in
Yeah.
every single one. So that's the only thing that gets me kind of like, who is this person? Um
Yeah.
I don't remember him having a green lightsaber though.
I think
As yellow.
he swapped because he lost it in the Rising Storm.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So that's awesome. Beautiful art. I do hope that it is the final cover because you also have the nameless behind them with the eyes.
Yeah.
It looks great. I absolutely love it. Um there was another in this thread that says that we are also getting a visual guide to the Acolyte as well.
By
Um
Pablo Hidalgo. So that's exciting.
yes, it is coming out July of 2025, so in about a year from now. And they also had a
The Art of the Acolyte, which is also by Kristen
yes.
Baver. It does contain a foreword by Leslie Headland, who also appeared via video
Yeah,
at the
that's what I was gonna
panel,
say as well.
and
Yeah.
she said "for light and life" at the end. So,
Yeah.
like, I love that. Um, so that's all exciting. The other part of the panel was kind of a deep dive interview with the voice actors of Star Wars Outlaws. So that is all the quotes and everything. Stardust Records was at the panel, and they tweeted a whole thread. So thank you very much for live tweeting this up. You're the reason that we're able to talk about these things, because otherwise, what would we do? So they have all the quotes and stuff from the interview within that. The other part of Star Wars Outlaws is, but why though? A great local, not a great small site, indie news site run by Kate Sanchez. She was able to do an interview with the actress for Kay Vess, Humberly Gonzalez, and the narrative director, Navid Kavari, about Kay Vess, her journey, and the impact of having a Latino lead in Star Wars video games. So I did not get a chance to read this interview, but I highly encourage you to go read this. Kate is an incredible interviewer. So I'm very excited to get to read this later. So yeah, there's that. Do you want to talk about the reactions that we got to some of the content creators and outlets that got to play Star Wars outlets, just to kind of give people an idea of what to expect?
Yeah, so let's go ahead and take a look at that. So this comes from Star Wars News Net saying various content creators and outlets have gotten a chance to play 4 hours of Star Wars Outlaws. From IGN, I'm not sure Outlaws will master any of its gameplay components. It's nonetheless not only does them all very well, but it does so with a convincing Star Wars sheen. So one thing that I have been seeing a lot from the general audience and kind of their opinions, and sometimes it's like, the whole like push up glasses, oh, I'm
Yeah,
smarter than the type of people also trying to say this, that graphics may not look 100% like some of the biggest games out there. Take it for what it is. This game does look gorgeous. I've seen a lot of the gameplay that has been released. I've kind of stayed away from a lot of the heavy story trailers because I don't want to spoil myself and I want to have the full experience. Uh, but I have been seeing people say that, like, okay, this doesn't look like the most amazing game everywhere, but it's what we've been saying along every form of media is not everything needs to be bombastic. It's okay to have okay things. It's okay to have great things. It's okay to have amazing
Mhm.
things. It's it's the wide variety that I'm looking for when it comes to Star Wars content. From Star Wars Explains says everything I experienced was promising. There was some gameplay hiccups here and there, but nothing that I felt was deal breaker. We played for 4 hours and I feel like we barely scratched the surface, and I see that as a good sign. Let's see here. Trying to get some other individuals that may be bigger in the space that people know about. Um, no one really that I recognize, but from GT27 status, none of the content felt overwhelming, which is good, which is a good feeling to have, especially in a Ubisoft game, which is known to do quite the opposite and distract you every step of the way. This is also something that has a lot of gamers like worried about Outlaws is, hey, let's push all of this content out, as well as, hey, we're going to put an inside store so that way you can, spend all your money there and all these other things. And this, from the sound of not feeling very overwhelmed, is fun because more often than not, a lot of people, since I would say about COVID, people want cozy gaming. People want something that you're going to be able to sit down and enjoy your time with. I'm seeing that in a lot of these reactions for Outlaws, so I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm excited to watch Matt play it. I think Matt's already pre-ordered it. So
Yep, one
Mar
month.
and I will cozy up with a book and watch him play video games. Um, so that's all on Outlaws. NoPeople.com. I do not want you to send me notifications. Not at all. Um, all right. So the other small piece of news that we have is it looks like Crimson Rain is going to be collected as an omnibus, and that is due out in April of 2025. It's going to collect the whole mini series for Crimson Rain, Star Wars Volume 3, so that's issues 19 through 25, Bounty Hunters 18 through 24, Darth Vader Volume 3, 18 to 24, and Dr. Aphra Volume 2, 16 to 21. So that's what you can expect for their. I would assume after this, they're going to do a Hidden Empire omnibus just to kind of knock all three out. I'm not planning on picking this one up. I've kind of figured out that omnibuses just aren't for me. They look super cool, but I do enjoy reading my physical media, even though I have access to them, like via Marvel Unlimited and things. But eventually I'm going to drop Marvel Unlimited, and I'd like to go back and read the physical copies, but an omnibus is just gigantic.
It's massive. And there's a lot of people, Katie, it's going to sound crazy, but there are people that literally buy these things just for decoration because they look that nice. And I don't blame them. They look amazing. But these are very equatable to that of what we used to call, I don't know if a lot of people use them anymore, but coffee table books. They're huge. So I can totally understand not jumping on the omnibus bandwagon. If
something like this would be a little more manageable because it's not that many issues. But like the only thing I could pick up for the first run of Dr. Aphra was the omnibus. They didn't make the trades, like they weren't making the epic collections at the time, so I couldn't grab those. And the Dr. Aphra omnibus is 1,000 pages.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous. But like Kanan, for instance, is 25 issues. That's not that bad. The Charles Soule Darth Vader run, 25 issues. not a bad omnibus. But like 1,000 pages, like come on, really? Like that's ridiculous.
It gets a little overwhelming sometimes because for me, uh me and Chris had this conversation in the idea of getting the Invincible omnibuses versus or getting the hardcover volumes other than the compendium. And the reason being the compendium only comes in paperback. With it
Mm,
being a stack of over 1,000 pages, you start to bend that spine and it can really start to damage the book. So
yeah.
that's why for me, I've stayed away from the compendium off of Chris's recommendation, and I just went with the graphic novels. So something to consider for those of you who haven't really looked into omnibuses that much. But yeah, do your research. If it's not something that you'll be able to lug around when it really isn't. Like if you're like, hey, let's take this, on the plane while I go fly. It's hefty. And I think it might actually surpass the weight limit for a carry-on. So
Yeah. I will 100% bet on that. All right. So should we talk about the other piece of book news that we got?
yes, this one is very exciting. Only well for two reasons. We get to confirm the identity of Yoror. For one,
Yes.
it does exist. But two, I thought it was really cool the way they revealed it. Tom wanted to have
Are
some
you
fun on
okay?
Twitter,
Sorry.
and he wanted to have some fun on Twitter, and he actually made it into a guessing game. He said, "Hey guys, if anybody can guess what this book is about before I reveal it, I'll give out a free copy of the book." So it was, I believe, from when I am looking at our timeline, it was the 29th. It was the 28th when he started to open up that guessing game, and it was the 29th when it was revealed. Tom revealed that somebody got the right era, like the right around the same time frame as when the book is supposed to be taking place, in the topic, but not necessarily the exact subject. But because they were so close, he is going to go ahead and send them a copy of this novel. And Katie, you want to go ahead and share that reveal?
Yes. So, um, this is a brand new Star Wars book trilogy, which has been previously done with Aftermath and Alphabet Squadron. Um, and so this trilogy is entitled Star Wars Reign of the Empire. Oh, I'm sorry. The other trilogy is Throne Ascendancy. I forgot about that one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and in Tom's tweet, he says this is a trilogy charting the rise of the rebellion across the near 2 decades between episode 3 and episode 4. The first book is entitled The Mask of Fear, and it is by Alexander Freed. The next two books are by Rebecca Roanhorse and Fran Wild.
Yes, and you did a little bit of research for me, or at least you filled in some information for me. You told me everything that these individuals have written in the Star Wars universe.
Yep.
So Fran Wild wrote No Contingency in the From a Certain Point of View Returns. Freed wrote Alphabet Squadron, Rogue One, and Battlefront Twilight Company, along with two short stories in
A
the
New Hope from a Certain Point of
a new,
View
yeah,
and Empire Strikes Back from a Certain Point of View.
yeah. And Roanhorse wrote Resistance Reborn. So I am not familiar with Resistance Reborn, but I have read both A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. So I've had a little bit of their writing from Wild and Freed. So very exciting things. So
So,
Tom went on this. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
so sorry, just to give some context, Freed also wrote some Star Wars Legends comics, but I didn't include those here, just to kind of summarize their canon work. But Alphabet Squadron is a trilogy that takes place right after Return of the Jedi, and is about a fighter squadron of different ships. He also wrote the Rogue One, obviously novel adaptation, and then Battlefront Twilight Company. I have not had the chance to read, but that's based on the video game. So,
Yes.
Resistance Reborn is about it transitions the Last Jedi to Rise of Skywalker. And so she writes about how the Resistance tries to get more people involved in the failings in that, and then kind of rates the interactions with Poe and Leia to kind of get Poe to grow up a little bit more in that case, especially since we knew that Carrie Fisher had died at that point. So this story was going to be transitioning and not able to tackle her as much. So this is really well done story by Rebecca. And I know some of her other books are really well loved. So I'm glad to see. I love Friend Wild's Mon Mothma story and Return, and from a certain point of view, Returns. Freed writes incredibly, and like I said, I loved Resistance Reborn. So all three of these authors, super excited to see these come out. I am wondering about the release schedule, and it's only a year apart. So it's Mask of Fear is February 25th, 2025. And then book 2 is spring 2026. Book 3 is spring 2027. So it's only a year apart. But like, you have other authors, like the same author is not writing the whole trilogy.
So I do have an opinion on that. And
Okay.
I think what it has to do is the newly setup that Charles Soule and everybody at the High Republic, and the way that they decided to go with in phase 3. They said that they wanted to make a point to not have so many releases in one year, so that way readers didn't feel overwhelmed. And I think this might be an actual good basis for a plan with probably all of Star Wars novels moving forward. And I know it's a little tricky based off of not all of Star Wars books are under one publisher, Disney, Random House Worlds, all these other things, right? So I think what they are doing as publishing as a whole is saying, hey, we're going to make this wide release of novels make more sense for the quote unquote average reader. So instead of having this entire trilogy come out in, say, a year and a half, they're like, okay, if you are picking this up because you are a Star Wars fan, you are most likely picking up all of our other novels. So we're going to pace these out so that way you can pick up other things and not just this one trilogy. I think that is ultimately the goal for Lucasfilm Publishing.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess I'm just used to Legends. Truly, sorry, y'all. I have a baby fighting me for sleep. You're okay. I guess I'm just used to the Star Wars Legend series where it was like you had spring and then you had fall. You had spring and then you had fall.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of continued based on that, especially when you had other authors involved. So, but like you said, that makes sense to spread it out. And then that gives you an opportunity for a fall release with something else. If you want to. I'm not saying...
Well, and I think more so we were spoiled with the High Republic initiative, having all of these waves planned out and coming out throughout the year and everything else. So when something new comes out, you're like, okay, we're going to be seeing this come out pretty quickly. But instead, it's going to take a full 3 years for this to come into a conclusion from the announcement all the way until we actually see the finale of this trilogy. Some things that I actually wanted to bring up in this thread that Tom wrote over the weekend, or I guess 2 days ago, not over the weekend. Either way, I highly recommend you go through all of this thread. So go check out Tom at Darth Internus on Twitter. So the things that I wanted to bring up on this thread, he says the entire goal of this trilogy was to tell stories with this. Well, first, before I go to this one, he says, you want more Star Wars Reign of the Empire details? Here's the thread on them. First, the book one title is, of course, Mask of Fear. He says, oppression is the mask of fear. This is a quote from Nemec. This is not a direct and/or tie-in. Not a anemic book is what he is saying, but that perfectly captures the tone of what this story will be about. He says the entire goal of the trilogy was to tell stories with the same intent, specificity, sense of place and people, and saying something is real, or saying something real. That Andor does. That whole entire feeling that we got from Andor was like, holy crap, this is like the oppression and the darkness, and like you are in the thick of it. This is what this trilogy is going to be about. He said we wanted to honor that the best we could, acknowledging it's a bit of a ludicrous and lofty goal. He does say here that each book will cover one portion of the near 20-year gap, starting with book one during Empire Year One. The series will jump forward with each book. We're really taking advantage of the amount of time so each book can be a full, complete story. He says, kind of like House of the Dragon Season 1 did. So for those of you who are fans of House of the Dragon, they're kind of taking inspiration on how time is moving in this trilogy. So there is that. And then the last thing that I want to bring up, he says, Mon Mothma, Saw Gerrera, and Bail Organa are absolutely our pillar characters. But this series is also going to introduce new and original characters, some who will pass from book to book and grow, change, and evolve across the series. So very, very fun things to look forward to in this new trilogy. Of course, Travis doesn't necessarily love this because it is in the quote-unquote dark times, but it is, from what we've experienced in Andor, some of the greatest time to do some real stories. So
yeah,
very, very
and
fun.
Tom actually addressed that because somebody talked about it. I can't locate the tweet at the moment, y'all, so I'm sorry. But to the best of my recall, he said that this was absolutely something they considered, that this time period had been covered multiple times already, but that's why they decided to tell more of a political based story and how the rebellion gets started, and kind of the consequences and successes that go along with that. Telling more niche story versus kind of a general conflict area. So
So
but that
it's also
is
nice that they acknowledge it, though. Like, that's the
yeah.
big thing that I saw from that. So, but I think that is it for all of the publishing news. And I think we can go on to the news that we got today.
Which I'm so happy we got it today. Thank you, Disney, for dropping this on a Wednesday and not a Thursday like you typically do.
We usually get Star Wars news on Thursday. But the news that we got from People Magazine is Skeleton Crew is going to be premiering on Disney Plus December 3rd.
Yes.
We finally got a date.
This. Yes, a date. So exciting. I'm really pumped by this. So the pictures, first look is all on people.com. And I believe it's an interview specifically with Jude Law about different elements of the show and everything. But can you pull up the pictures?
Yeah, so let's go ahead and jump here, and I will share my screen.
She's so close.
So, looking at the People website, let's go to the first picture. This one has been going around. Of course, this was
Yeah.
actually a part of the sizzle reel, screenshot that they showed. I, gosh, was it 2 years ago now? I can't actually
Yeah.
remember.
I don't think this was part of the trailer that they showed. Like this was part of like the press release that they did. But it's a
Okay,
picture of
yeah.
Jude Law for listeners, with the kids behind him. And Jude Law is kind of like smiling off, like huzzah, like I'm ready for adventure, almost.
Yeah, this is the first photo that we've already seen. The new photos that we have are characters Neil and Wim. These are played by Robert Timothy Smith and Ravi Kabat Conyers. They look like they are on some sort of speeders. They're actually walking these speeders through what looks like a forest. Um, I really like the tones that we're already seeing from compared to one photo to the next.
Yeah.
I really enjoy that. We next get a photo of Jude Law and all of the kids in the ship. Says we are, and I guess this is the first confirmation of the character names as well. From
Yep.
left to right, we are seeing Wim, uh, Nawwood is that's actually Jude Law's character is uh Jod Nawwood is his name. Weird. Um KB, Neil, and Fern are all
Yes.
the characters that we're going to be dealing with uh, in the Skeleton Crew. Um, and then we also have uh, a picture here that has a droid. It is
Uh,
SM-33.
yep. And he is voiced by Nick Frost.
Yes. Which I'm actually really excited about. Nick Frost is a little bit of a comfort actor for me. Um, of course, I just had one of his favorite roles in my head, and then it just disappeared.
I have no idea who he is, if that makes you feel better.
So I will actually show you because I did actually pull up an article uh, in our GUA chat earlier today. If it hasn't already been taken down, I don't think it has. Right here. So I will show this one. So I know that you've seen this guy because he was Santa Claus in Peter Capaldi's special.
Oh. No, go to sleep. Sorry. That was rude. She was so
Yeah.
close. Okay,
So,
sorry.
Nick Frost has played Santa Claus. He was in Shaun of the Dead. He was in what was that alien movie? Alan, I think it was called, the one with Seth Rogen uh, and Simon Pegg. Uh, I can't remember the name of it, but yeah, he says he's like a rusty old cranky droid that sort of reluctantly helps the kids along the way. So in my mind, uh, a lot of like the fun droids in Star Wars have a little bit of sass.
Yeah,
Sounds like 33 is going to have a little bit of sass in this show as well. So looking forward to it.
that's
Um,
exciting.
I don't know if there was anything else pertaining to Skeleton Crew that really showed up in our feeds.
Yeah, this was the big interview. I think the biggest thing was the character names, and then Nick Frost. Um, they did, and I'm only saying this because of the title of the People article. They say there's a lot of Easter eggs that you'll be able to catch, as well as some direct references to how A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi were all filmed. Um, like just the way they were filmed.
Yeah.
Um, so that'd be interesting to see. I'm not a huge fan of like, oh yeah, here's Easter eggs. Like, why do you have to why do you have to say there's a lot of Easter eggs? Like,
Well,
just be a good
I
Star
know.
Wars.
I think like one of the big things that we had learned prior to this interview was the fact that there was a lot of inspiration to like go back and use some of like old school filmography for this show.
Yeah.
So that's nothing new yet, but we'll see how all of that plays out when we actually review it at the beginning of December. So 2025, I mean 2024, we technically got it right, but right off the cusp, just like Boba Fett. So that is it for our news segment. We don't have anything else there to talk about. So let's go ahead and move right into our review and our main topic for tonight, which is Star Wars A New Dawn. This is, of course, like Katie said, the first canon novel of Disney Star Wars. And this is the movie. This is the story of how Kanan and Hera met. So,
Yes.
Katie, you have read this one before, correct?
No, I have not. This was the first time I read it.
Wow. So this is a first for both of us. This is gonna be fun.
Yeah, it's like the first time this happened, right? I think.
I mean that from a novel that is older, yes. Of course, we read new books all
Right.
the time. But this is the first time that we are both jumping on board to a new or a older book that is new for both of us. Of course, the author of this is John Jackson Miller, with a foreword from Dave Filoni. So, Katie, how did you feel about the? Well, I'll say this. This was a little bit harder for me to get through. I found myself dozing a lot while listening to this. But I will say this flowed. And just, of course, these are some very iconic characters and loving characters and one of the best relationship goals in Star Wars. This felt like a Rebels episode, like a very long Rebels episode. To like the jokes, to kind of like the same way that characters inside Rebels sneak around the Empire facilities and all of that. Like it had everything in there, which I thought was really, really fun.
Yeah, I really. Every time I talk, it scares her. Sorry. Um, it, where was it? I really enjoyed getting these perspectives on Kanan and Hera. I also kind of really enjoyed Skelly and what is it, Saluna?
Yes.
Yeah, they Miller actually really developed them all quite nicely. It was nice to see him tackle a smaller cast.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like even Vidian, like the main villain, in this case, was like really well developed and like had a neat backstory. He had motives and everything. Miller was very tight knit with this one. I enjoyed this one a lot more than I did The Living Force. I think it, and again, I think it's particularly because of the small cast
Mm-hmm.
involved. Um, I like that we start off, and this doesn't really pertain to the big parts of the story, but I like the prologue, where
The
Obi-Wan is
prologue
showing him the
rips
beacon.
it rips my heart apart. That's
Yeah.
what it does. Um, the opening has Obi-Wan Kenobi teaching uh, oh shoot,
Like a
Kanan.
group of younglings.
Yeah, including Kanan, and and he is telling them about the protocol that they have to get a hold of every Jedi out in the galaxy. Of course, we know that this is very, very relevant to Star Wars because Obi-Wan himself has had to use it. Um,
And
and what,
Kanan actually gives him the idea.
yeah, and that's what is so heartbreaking. The transition from the prologue to this book to immediately going to Kanan makes you realize, like, oh man, like
It just rips your heart out.
it does. Like the fact that he was bold enough to even question, hey, why, like, what about if we tell everybody to leave Coruscant or leave the Jedi Temple? And like everybody's laughing at him. Other masters are kind of like whispering and everything else. And Obi-Wan makes it a teachable moment, which I absolutely
Yeah.
love. Uh, and then it goes into the actual call that Obi-Wan had to make everybody leave and not go back to the temple. Again, truly heartbreaking. Um, you talk about the small cast of characters. Uh, Skelly. Um, we are introduced to Kanan, his way of life, his job, all of these different things. Um, and Skelly, right off the bat, is a character that really rubs you the wrong way, unfortunately, throughout the entire book, but you understand why. Like, he has this persona that, in a way, is like, like very much like I'm sure you guys have met this individual. I wouldn't say in your everyday living, but you've met him once or twice. It's the
Yeah.
guy that the conspiracy theorist that, like, just a broken clock is right twice a day, type thing. And Skelly is definitely that person. Um, I I really dug the voice that they gave Kanan in this book because at first I was like, this isn't Kanan. Like, what the hell? The whole like ladies' man, suave, like. But this is a Kanan that hasn't met Hera yet. Like,
Yeah.
so that's the thing that finally hit me when he finally does meet Hera. Um, but how did you feel about like the meeting of Hera, their mission, what it eventually got to? Like, how did you feel about all that?
I really enjoyed the mystique that Hera put up, that she was like, it feels like this is very early in the stages of forming the rebellion. Um, and we obviously know that she's kind of young at this point, but she's still very cautious. She's not overly sharing information. She's trying to find things. We don't get like a whole lot of rebellion. Sorry, y'all. I just live on alarms these days. Um, uh, we don't get a whole lot of like rebellion set up in this book. It,
Mm-hmm.
it definitely feels like, hey, we've been given this mission. Let's complete the mission. Like season one, Rebels style, like you said, like a very long episode of Rebels, where there's just enough information to give you what you need to know, basically. So, um, yeah, I really enjoyed the mystique Hera put off, um, and like that she didn't just fall for Kanan immediately. Like it had to build up, and
Mm-hmm.
like she knew there was something intriguing about him, but she didn't want to like throw it all at him immediately and like, oh, okay, he doesn't want to stick around, but like I'd like to see what he could do, kind of thing. So
Mm-hmm.
like, can I convince him to stick around? Uh, so all that is just very good setup.
Mm-hmm. It also speaks to like how Hera can really read people, and like even here, like this is the supposedly our first meeting of Hera in canon, technically. So you read this and you don't have the motherly Hera that we have in Rebels, but at the exact same time, she still has that even this early on in canon. She
Yeah.
still is very much caring of others. Hey, this is important to me, but like we also have to look after these people and these people. Um, we also meet our antagonist, our villain, very early on um, in this book as well. Um, with that being, uh, 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 uh,
Count Vidian.
yes, Count Vidian. I was going to say Captain. Count Vidian, the cyborg. And you actually get to finally, like near the end of the book, you get his backstory and how he was a random nobody in the Empire that, you know, just was not getting the best reputation. He wasn't getting Palpatine to really see him for anything. And finally, he's like, you know what? This accident is a blessing in disguise. The old me is dead. The new one's back. All of these rumors are circulating about me. I'll let them fester, and then I will roll with it. Which is absolutely insane to think about in the sense of how evil this guy really, like the energy he puts off from like the very beginning of when we meet him in this book, you know? So I dug this character. He was very intense with like, oh, I can see you with my infrared vision. I have like acute hearing. I can dial into radios without even like touching things.
Yeah.
Like he is a cyborg, and it's very very intense in some cases. How did you feel about him as a character, as the villain of the story, and how we inevitably get through uh, this hump as the rebels?
Um, I enjoyed getting an industrialist imperial person that
Hmm.
wasn't necessarily like we must beat up everyone and anyone, even though that is his personality, but he's got more brains
Hmm.
behind it. Is like
Yeah.
a he's very analytical. When like the whole point of this crisis, this conflict that takes place, is that the emperor is looking to increase mineral production so that they can build more star destroyers, and the quotas are out of control, and they would never be able to hit those numbers.
Yeah.
So things build out of that. Uh, so he's just very analytical. It is like best case, worst case scenario. Like,
Hmm.
hey, like what can we do here? So his counterpart in the Imperial Navy at this point is actually Captain Ray Sloan, who I believe um, was one of the first. Well, she's mentioned her that her story continues in the Aftermath trilogy, um, but I believe she's one of the only female Grand Admirals, but she's also a black female.
Hmm.
Um, So very good character representation here. So yeah, she plays a role, but she's not a main character in
Yeah.
this story, I would say. Would you agree with that?
Um yes and no. Because she inevitably, well, not inevitably, because she kind of does a uh double cross
Yeah.
with Kanan. Um there's a moment where, or several moments, that she is kind of like an intricate part of like plot moving forward, in the sense of she is the one that just in happenstance being in charge of what she's being in charge of, things are starting to kind of fall down and dominoes around her, and she's just like, hold on, what's going on here, let's look at this, let's look at that. And so yeah, she isn't a main player, but she is definitely a supporting pillar in this story,
Yeah.
I believe. Now remind me, because I just looked at the Wikipedia for her page, and I immediately recognized the photo, because wasn't there some sort of speculation that there was an actress that looked a lot like Ray Sloan's picture here in the Wikipedia? I want to say that we've actually shared it in our Star Wars Alliance chat. Like somebody was like, hold on a second. Wasn't it Jodie Turner Smith that people were like, hold on? Like now, of course, the timeline just didn't match up or whatever.
Yeah.
But because I could have sworn, no, so uh rumor, Angela Bassett met Lucasfilm for a role in Star Wars. That's what it was.
Yeah, that was it.
And then people were saying, holy crap, could she be a Ray Sloan?
Yeah.
If Angela Bassett was going to be Ray Sloan, I do hope it is a much bigger pillar, of a characterization in whatever story they are trying to develop with that. But either way, I dug this. The like we were saying, the Count, uh, forgot his name again. Vidian.
Fitting.
Vidian. Um, I I also like how at one point very early in the book, he encounters Kanan, and Kanan's not taking any of his shit. Like
Yeah.
he's like, "Hey, you can't do that." Da, da, da. He's of course the you know lighthearted Jedi. That's who he is. He is somebody who's going to stick up for others. Um, and Vidian just is like, you were too small for me. Whatever, like you were nothing to me. And it even calls back near the end of the book when they finally meet again. He's like, "Oh, you were so insignificant that I deleted your file from my memory banks, but I never forget a face." And I was like, Okay, like apparently he was significant enough, that you remember who he is. Um, but I dug him as the stone cold, because one other thing with Sloane was when Kanan eventually got to talk to her and was like,
Yep.
"Hey, this is what's going to happen," which again, it is the it is the one constant in Star Wars. It's like, hey, what is the Empire doing? Oh, they're gonna blow up a massive piece of space. Um, and that's the entire plot to this, is like, hey,
Well,
a
keep in
moon
mind.
is going to explode.
Well,
Um,
keep in mind that's what Legends did a lot. Weapons of mass destruction were a big thing. So
it's
Miller's going off what he knows.
I but it's such a mustache twirling plot device, it really is. But Kanan finds this out, talks to Sloane, and Sloane actually confronts Vidian about it at one point. She's like, "Hey, they said that you were gonna do this," and he like plays it off. He's like, "Oh, really? That's what they said? Like I'm some sort of espionage, blah 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 blah." And she's like, "Yeah, like, could you believe it? Like that? Like, why would they ever say that?" And it's just again that he was the perfect mustache twirling villain for this story, and I actually really really dug it. Um, a surprising character that I didn't think I was gonna like that much, um, because of the way they depicted her very early on in the book was uh, Zaluna. Zaluna is a character that has worked at her job for. I actually don't know how old Zaluna is in the universe here.
I
Um,
don't know how old she is either, but she'd worked at the job for 30 years.
yeah, she worked there for a very long time, and she has referenced many times in this book of like, oh yeah, back in my day, da, 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 and like how she talks about how like she's met Jedi before, and uh she's done this and this and this before Kanan was even born, and like all of these other things. But she is the type of person that is fully dedicated to her job, and the whole entire reason why she's caught up into this story is because one of her employees, co-workers, was actually a informant for Hera. And when they get questioned by stormtroopers and let go and fired, uh, Zaluna is the one that falls upon this information
Oh,
and decides to follow the breadcrumbs to Hera. And you know, this is when she starts to we see the converting from someone who, and I wouldn't even say converting. Converting is such like a weird term for this because she, like I said, is just committed to her job, not necessarily an individual that is like, I am for the empire, long live the empire type of person. Um, she talks about how she loves her job the entire book or whatever, but she questions the things that have happened. She is by the book on a lot of these different things. And when she finally realizes, hey, like things are bad, it's a little too late because she finds out, oh, the Empire was at our office. They've noticed that I've been gone for a couple days. They're gonna know that my last meeting with you guys, I'm done for. So I guess I'm part of the rebellion now. Um, and I really dug her story. Like it was a little silly that she got stuck in like a broom closet, basically, um, inside of the ship, and they just couldn't hear her for like 3 days, which is insane. But yeah, really, really loved Zaluna. I think she is the underdog character in this
yeah.
story.
Because she just seems to know kind of everything that like needs to happen, which obviously
Hmm.
you always have to like have that character involved, like the one who can like go, oh no, this is exactly what we need to do. Um, so yeah, she was great. I loved her. And to get another Celestin, I feel like they're really rare characters in Star Wars, so it was nice.
Hmm. Yeah.
Can you hear that, by the way?
Um, very, very little. It's not going to be that big of a deal
Okay.
for
I
the
just
recording.
I didn't want to make sure. I wanted to make sure it wasn't bad.
Yeah, no, it's not blaring in my ears at all, so we'll be fine.
Okay.
Um, but are there
So
any like big points that you want to bring up from the story?
So, what did you think about Kanan struggling with his identity as a Jedi in this case, and the fact that he's kept his lightsaber this whole time?
Yeah, like my big thing is, guys, we don't get the lightsaber into like the last 3 chapters of the book. Like it
Yeah,
is not a part of this story whatsoever, and it's like 40 something chapters. Um, I thought that this was a very interesting point. Um, he, from time to time, he'll remember some things that his old master taught him. Right? He'll uh, what was her name?
Balaba.
Uh, Deepa Bilaba, uh, would kind of come up in his brain of like, oh, you shouldn't do this, or you should do this, or just some master quips would come into his mind sometimes throughout the book. Um, but his struggle here um, was not really a struggle because, like I said, Kanan at his core is still an individual that has the quote unquote morality of what a Jedi should be. Of course, we are learning a lot different things, but the Kanan that we know and love, he has always been that person to the core. Yeah, he might have that like rough cowboy, like, oh, I'm gonna beat your ass, because he says that to freaking Scully like 6 times in this book.
Yeah.
Scully is so like freaking hard headed and doesn't want to do this or doesn't want to do that. And, yeah, Kanan is the 6 foot whatever. And I always see, like, while I was reading, I always felt like Scully was like this very short, like, probably somebody that Kanan could probably pick up by the vest and like hang him, like with his feet dangling, is the type of character that I think Scully is. So like I could visually see him getting like kind of rough with him, and I'm like, yeah, this is his emotions. This is the character that Kanan has allowed him to be because there isn't a Jedi temple, an academy, and he doesn't have a master to kind of scold him. He is his own individual person. We've in this book we learn that he's had some lovers before, that he's been the drunkard, he's gone through life without being a part of this cult religion that he was a part of. And is it for the best of him? We see that now in Rebels. Like, yeah, like him growing a heart and having feelings and all of this is better for him. Um, but I dug this because again, this will also like the idea of like I gotta stay away from the Empire, and if anybody gets too close, then like, hey, I'm out, because that was the whole like the beginning of the story is like, hey, I got in too deep, I accidentally used the Force, I think
Yep.
nobody saw me, but I'll go ahead and leave just in case, and I won't show up here anymore. And then he stumbles onto everything else. So like I dig that he still wants to be careful. He still was like, hey, my life is on the line. Like, we can only imagine what his life was like for the first 2 years of running and hiding, right? So like seeing him now doing the exact same thing, excuse me, I still dig that about him. You see the growth in his character from not wanting to be in this limelight or in the spotlight to openly going to Hera and being like, "Hey, are we going to be this team? Are we going to go out and save the galaxy or whatever?" Because that was a line in this book as well. He was like, "Hey, I'm not this kind of person. I'm not going to go, put my neck out for these people." And then Hera turned around and said, "But you just did." Like,
Yep.
so I dug the growth of Kanan in this book.
Yeah. It was good to see him kind of grow up, like you said, and just build the confidence to be like, okay, Hera's got something more going on here.
Mm-hmm.
I need to be involved, but I also want to build this relationship with her. So yeah, really, really enjoyed this book.
Yeah, 100%. Um, I don't know if there is a whole lot else to jump on. Of course, when we talk about these reviews, we want to highlight some of the key points that we enjoyed in the book. But overall, we want you guys to go out there, read these books, enjoy them yourselves. Um, so, even though this book is what, almost 10 years old now,
Well, yeah, almost
um,
8 years old.
I looking back at the public, yeah, it was published. Release date was 2014 in September. So literally almost 10 years old in 2 months. So or a month and a half. So there you go. Yeah, very very fun. Um, I will probably end up looking for this to actually have in my collection because I enjoyed it that much. Listening to an actual audiobook of it. But yeah, very, very fun book. And also listening to the forward uh, by
Um,
Dave Filoni was really, really fun as well. You know, getting the idea of like, hey, uh, I enjoyed Star Wars when I was a young kid, and now I get to create this stuff and all of that was a really fun thing to listen to as well. But yeah,
all right, well, Clay, where can they find you?
yeah, of course, you can always find me at Fanboy Clay on Twitter and any and all social media. So go hang out with us there. We are going to be pushing for a lot more content on social media. We are going to be pushing the episodes more and other things like that. Katie and I have gotten together to really map out what the next hopeful year is about. We had a little bit of a hiccup for this month because of some other things that came out, so we had to switch some things around. But we are going to be pushing a lot more content, and so it's going to be a very fun rest of the year. So be on the lookout for all of that. Go check out Ranger Alliance as well over at the network. Me, Joe, and Jake are actually going to be on next episode talking about the finale of Power Ranger comics in their 8 year run. So it's going to be a lot of fun talking to the guys about that. But also, I have teamed up with some of the guys over at Geekverse, and we play this game called Marvel Snap. It's a mobile game, it's a PC game, it's a game that I spend way too much time on, but it's a really it's a lot of fun. It's a card game. If you guys are interested, we created a what is now known as an alliance on that game. You can search Geekverse on Marvel Snap, and you can find us. Me and Dylan are the team leads on that alliance. So there is no application or anything. You can just search and join and have a lot of fun with us and join the Discord as well so we can talk to you guys. So yeah, lots and lots of fun.
Awesome. Well, y'all, you can find me on most social media platforms. It's at Slice of Katie. This show you can find on Twitter. It is at Star Wars Alliance with the A in the Wars. Very important. Don't forget it. Remember, that is the username. Or you can email us as well, Star Wars Alliance at gmail.com. No A in the Wars. So, yeah, we will be here next week, back to 7 p.m. So, yeah, y'all be here. I want to wish everyone a great day or night, whatever time of day you're listening or watching, and we will see y'all next time. May the Force be with you.